South Korea. South Korea hasn't executed anyone since 1997, but the death penalty is still legal, and 59 prisoners remain on death row today. Officially, the country is considered abolitionist in practice, but not in law. Prisoners sentenced to death live under constant uncertainty, never knowing if the moratorium could be lifted at any moment. Executions in South Korea are carried out by hanging, and the last time it happened, 23 inmates were executed in a single day. Cells are small, tightly controlled, and prisoners are kept isolated from others. Even though no executions have taken place in decades, the looming possibility acts as a form of psychological punishment. Iran. In 2024, Iran carried out 972 executions, nearly 3 every single day. Inmates usually don't know their fate until a day or two before. Prisoners are squeezed into small cells, frequently beaten, and confessions are often extracted through torture, then used as evidence in court. Crimes punishable by death include drug dealing, adultery, homosexuality, leaving Islam, and blasphemy. More than 40% of executions in 2024 were drug-related. Conditions are appalling. At Karchak prison, over 2,000 women and children live in what used to be a chicken farm, with contaminated water, no health care, and high death rates. Public executions, often hangings from cranes, sometimes take place in front of crowds that include children. Families are often informed only after it's over, and in some cases never receive the body. Since 1990, Iran has executed at least 176 people for crimes committed while they were still minors. United States. In the U.S., death row works differently, but has its own cruelties. Prisoners here often wait more than 20 years before their execution, longer than anywhere else. Conditions vary by state, but most inmates spend almost all day in solitary confinement. In Alabama, for example, some cells are as small as 40 square feet, with no windows and no air conditioning. In the summer, inmates have been known to stand inside their toilets just to cool off. The death penalty is still legal in 24 jurisdictions, and over 2,200 people are currently on death row. With the average wait stretching beyond 20 years, nearly 1 in 4 inmates die of natural causes before they are executed. The U.S. uses 5 methods of execution: lethal injection, the electric chair, the gas chamber, and hanging. Juvenile executions were outlawed in 2005, but the history remains dark, like the case of George Stinney, a 14-year-old executed in 1944. Wrongful convictions are another major issue. Anthony Ray Hinton spent 30 years on death row before being proven innocent. Before we continue exploring how death row is carried out around the world, take a moment to hit that subscribe button. Your support helps the channel grow and allows me to keep creating powerful, in-depth stories like this one. Japan. In Japan, death row inmates live in constant psychological torment. They are told they will be executed only 1 or 2 hours before it happens. Prisoners spend years in tiny monitored cells, forced to sit still for most of the day. They cannot speak unless spoken to by a guard. The death penalty is reserved mainly for murder, treason, and crimes against the state, and in most cases, multiple victims are required for the sentence. Since 1993, only 16 out of 130 executions have involved a single victim. The psychological damage is severe. Iwao Hakamada spent 48 years on death row before being cleared in 2023, suffering lasting mental trauma. Executions are carried out by hanging in special chambers. 5 officers press buttons at the same time so none knows who released the trapdoor. Families are notified only after their loved one is already gone. Pakistan. Pakistan has one of the largest death row populations in the world, with over 3,800 inmates currently awaiting execution. Crimes that can lead to a death sentence include murder, blasphemy, terrorism, and drug offenses. Blasphemy laws are especially controversial, as even a simple accusation can lead to a death sentence, often without strong evidence. Prisoners live in overcrowded, unsanitary conditions, with many waiting decades for their cases to be resolved. Executions are carried out by hanging, sometimes in public, and families are often not given proper notice. Since resuming executions in 2014 after a 7-year break, Pakistan has carried out hundreds, with a peak in 2015 when more than 300 people were executed in a single year. North Korea. In 2022, a 22-year-old man was publicly executed simply for listening to K-pop. In North Korea, a death sentence doesn't just affect the individual, it punishes the entire family. Parents, siblings, children, and even grandchildren can be locked away in labor camps for life. Capital punishment is handed out for things as small as watching a foreign movie, making an overseas call, or criticizing the government. Some have even been executed for stealing food or complaining about their situation. Right now, between 80,000 and 120,000 people are trapped in these prison camps, many guilty of nothing except being related to someone the state targeted. Prisoners are forced to work up to 20 hours a day, and countless die from exhaustion or starvation. In 2013, Kim Jong-un even ordered the execution of his own uncle, and his uncle's relatives and friends were either killed or thrown in prison too. Each year, around 150 executions take place in North Korea. Egypt. Egypt is one of the most active executioners in the Middle East. In 2024 alone, courts issued 281 death sentences, and at least 13 people were executed. The process often begins with defendants being tortured into confessions during interrogations, which are later used as evidence in trials. Families of the accused frequently aren't informed until after the sentence has been carried out. Death row inmates in Egypt are kept in overcrowded cells with poor sanitation, no medical care, and little access to lawyers. In some cases, dozens of prisoners are executed in a single day without public notice. Most executions are carried out by hanging, and many of those condemned are political prisoners accused of opposing the government. Human rights groups say trials are often unfair and rushed, with no chance of appeal. Belarus. Belarus has one of the harshest and most secretive death penalty systems in Europe. Prisoners are told of their execution only minutes before it happens. Families never receive the bodies and are never told where their loved ones are buried. Inmates are kept in an old crumbling castle under strict surveillance, forced to walk in circles for hours inside their cells. Capital punishment is applied for crimes like treason, sabotage, or attempts to overthrow the government. But in reality, most executions target political opponents. Since gaining independence in 1991, Belarus has executed more than 300 people. Families often learn of an execution weeks later when they receive a box of their relatives' belongings. Executions are carried out with a gunshot to the back of the head, and burial sites remain secret, denying families any chance for closure. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is one of the world's most relentless enforcers of capital punishment. In 2022 alone, 196 executions were recorded, the highest in decades. Death sentences cover a wide range of crimes: murder, drug trafficking, political dissent, sorcery, and apostasy. Trials are often closed to the public, with defendants denied proper legal defense, and verdicts heavily reliant on confessions extracted under torture. Executions are usually carried out in public squares, most often by beheading with a sword. Crowds are forced to watch, sometimes including children, turning punishment into a spectacle of fear. One of the most shocking events came in March 2022, when the kingdom executed 81 men in a single day. Families are rarely given advance notice. Sometimes they only discover their loved one has been killed through state media announcements. If this story hits you hard, the next one hits even worse. Smash that like button and show some love if you want more videos like this. It really helps the channel grow.